Hello and welcome to a live Deprogram with Keri Smith. I am your host and I'm running a little late today. Thank you to you guys for being patient. The regulars who are in the chat are like, what's happening? I'm often 5 minutes late, but not this late. I apologize. I periodically, I don't know, tell me if this happens to you. I periodically get locked out of X and then all the code, the backup codes, the text confirmation code, all the different, two-factor access and all that stuff that you use to prove that it's you doesn't work. And then I have to send them a support request. And I don't know why this happens to me. I think it might be because people try to log into my account or something just to mess with me. I don't know. But that was happening. And I had so many tabs marked that I needed to use from X. So this is why I'm late, and I apologize. I am back in my account now, and I appreciate you guys being patient. Hey, Michelle, Force of Light. Hello, good to see you. I'm on their watch list. Maybe this just happens to people who maybe people just try to break into their account and they put extra security on it. I don't know, but this happens to me too frequently. Good to see you guys. Hell F and T. Yes, hell F and T. It's good to be here. I hope you had a great weekend. We had a good weekend. I'll just tell you before I get into my topic. Yesterday was the 5-year anniversary of the day that I met my husband, and we had a lot of talks about it and just thoughtfulness about it. I guess, he was thinking a lot about where we were back then and where we are today. And we went to church yesterday and he said a few words, which surprised me. I didn't know he was going to say anything, but I just want to say, if you're a believer, you will get this. If you're not, you may think it's cheesy. And that's okay. Tolerate my cheesiness. Just praise God for where we're at. That's all. We were, 5 years ago when we met, we were both still drinking. I didn't know. I was on the path to finding God, but I was slowly stumbling, making my way there, and neither of us could have imagined where we would be today, and imagine just all the blessings that we have, and imagine this amazing church community, this family that we have, and just how good life is. And even with all the hard times, even with all the trials and the evil in the world, and even with all the chaos and the tragedy in the world, and life is so good even through all of that. And I was thinking about, we were talking about a lot the past couple of days because our porch is finished and we were sitting on our porch swing, which is great. Now we have to get started painting, that's coming up soon, but and we're doing that ourselves. But anyway, we're just sitting talking, and I was thinking about some of my friends who are awake to what's happening in the world, and they can see all the evil, and they're fully awake, and they see everything that's happening around us, and they know that bad things, worse things might be coming, but they're not believers. And some of these friends of mine, they want to be, and I see them struggling sometimes online, sometimes in private conversations with them, where they're like at that stage where they say, there's something you have, this peace or this contentment, and I wish I had it, and I wish I had it, and they just have trouble with that leap. That I think of believing in a loving creator, there's something there that they just haven't, in my opinion, haven't gotten rid of some of these blocks yet that keep you from opening your mind to that possibility. But they want to be there, and I think that's a good place to be, where you want to be there, because I can't imagine going through the crazy world that we're going through right now without this peaceful feeling underneath it all, even during chaos. And I'm very grateful for it. I'm very glad that God spoke to me and called me out and touched me a few years ago, because I wouldn't want to be going through this right now without him. I'd probably be relying on all my old crutches, just kind of numbing myself or something through it. And I don't have to do that. And I have joy, even in the crazy times. Yes, Adam, it brought that song to mind too. That peaceful, easy feeling, as the Eagles would say. I love that song. Couple of questions about the house. Did you decide on the color? Actually, I have a Twitter poll going, an X poll going about the color. We are choosing between two blues. I know there were lots of great suggestions. Don't get mad if we didn't pick your color. We're choosing between two blues. So I said, which one do you like? I can't decide between these two. If you want to go to X and vote, I would appreciate it. But yeah, so we have a couple, like tomorrow we're moving a piano. We are no piano movers. We're doing it. That's going to be a arduous task. And then Wednesday we start scraping all the paint. Hey, if you're in the area, if you're one of my friends in the area and you want to come help us scrape some paint, or we have to put on suits and everything because it's lead paint, I think. So there's a whole procedure. And if you want to do that, or you want to help us paint when we get to the painting portion, you are free to come over. I'll make you some iced tea. We can have snacks. You just let me know if you want to come and join the renovation party. We're getting ready to do that. Brahma Bull. Hey, Brahma, it better be the light blue. I didn't want to sway people, but that's where I was leaning. I didn't want to sway people. Okay. Let's get started talking. A lot happened this weekend. I mean, our life, our personal things, it felt like a momentous weekend for us, but there was all this stuff happening in the world. So do you guys remember when the no super chats, just labor? Yes. Give me your labor. Do you guys remember when time moves so fast now? They had this crazy presidential debate just a few weeks ago now. And I was on Brahma Bull's channel that night, and it was crazy because they were allowing Biden to be seen fully nakedly in his cognitive decline. And at the time, a lot of us had the same gut reaction. And Brahma Bull had a great point where he said they bumped this presidential debate up to June. Why'd they do that? Because it's usually in September or October. Why'd they do it in June? And why would they put him out there in this state, knowing that he's like this? See, for anybody who's watching, who's not, I don't know, I would say not based. You probably you wouldn't describe yourself that way. But anybody who's hate watching or just curious about what does Keri talk about with their crazy MAGA cult people? I know you say I'm MAGA cult. I know you say all kinds of things that I don't think are correct. But for you guys, it was maybe a surprise. I know for a lot of my friends who are still in the cult I was in, the woke cult, it was a surprise. They were shocked that Biden was so incapable, that he was so incoherent, that he couldn't focus and couldn't form complete sentences, and that he rambled and he just wasn't present in that debate. It was shocking, but it wasn't shocking for us. That's the thing is, I've said this before, you guys are late to a lot of things. That's the nature of being in an echo chamber, a cult-like environment where you're only given certain information and you have so much trust and faith in these corporate media sources and in the politicians that are in your echo chamber and in the celebrities, and you're just fully in. And so you learn things late when they allow you to learn things. And so for some reason, it was really weird. In June, they allowed you guys to learn this. They had been denying this for years, but we had been seeing it. We had been sharing the clips of him incoherent and not fully there. And whenever they did address it, your media, the corporate media, the mainstream media, whenever they did address it, they would poo-poo it and say that's a right-wing conspiracy theory and he's fine. And they would just say it was a deep fake, or they would say just crazy stuff about it, cheap fake. And they completely wrote it off. And they told you guys, the ones who trust them and listen to them, they told you it was nothing. And then in June, they moved the debate up several months earlier than it usually is. Why they do that? Maybe enough time to swap him out. I think there was an internal coup in the party where some of them decided we're getting rid of him. And this is how we're going to do it. We have to let him go into this debate early enough that we can swap him out, and also we have to just let him go in and show fully how unprepared he is and how incapable he is and incompetent, and we have to let the people see that the emperor has no clothes. They did that on purpose. They let him go out there and humiliate himself like that on purpose. They knew what he was like. We knew what he was like, but you guys didn't. They let you see it. And then what happened the very next day? All the corporate media. I did an episode on this. All the media, Van Jones story, read all of them. They all turn on a dime. They've been lying to you guys and gaslighting you for 3 years, telling you he's fine. All of a sudden, they started saying he needs to step down. We need to replace him in the race. This is terrible. They start pretending like they didn't know. They knew this whole time. They start pulling up old clips. CNN was pulling up old clips that they had discounted in the past 3 years. Old clips of him incoherent and mumbling that they had written off and excused and blamed on a stutter and all this other stuff, and you guys just ate it up. They started pulling up those old clips that they told us were nothing, and they started airing those old clips and showing you guys that and saying, look at this. Oh my goodness, this has been developing for a while. Oh, if only we had known. They were showing it to you. All at once they turned, right? As if they got new marching orders. Mike Cernovich had a great tweet. He said, something to the effect of what we are watching is pretty much effectively, we are watching a coup. You guys, this is the party that keeps talking about democracy. Like, oh, we got to save democracy. While they just replaced the candidate that you guys democratically elected to run for you. They just replaced him. They just replaced him right in front of you. But we love democracy, right? Let me show you this one from my buddy, Mike Harlow. He said, Democrats, they tried to have the Republican nominee removed from the ballot. They tried to get the independent candidate removed from the ballot. They forced their own nominee to drop out. Also, Democrats, protect the democracy. Pretty funny. There's a lot of funny commentary right now, a lot of funny memes, a lot of dark humor as well. Protect our democracy while they're engaging in a coup right in front of you. Right in front of you. There's some other crazy stuff if you think about it. Again, I'm talking to the people on the left who might be watching. That's how I want to talk to you right now. Those of us who've been awake for a while, like, there's a lot of frustration sometimes in trying to have conversations with you guys because you usually I'm not trying to condescend, but from our perspective, let's say all of your ideas are right and we're totally wrong. Wouldn't you want to at least know how things look from our perspective? So I'll try and explain it to you. From our perspective, you guys, you don't really know what's happening in the world. Like I said, you're late to learning everything. You believed them with the origins of COVID, for example. You believed the authoritarian COVID policy was going to work. You believed that the vax was going to work and that it was going to be safe. I mean, you believed that Biden was perfectly fine, no cognitive problems. You believed Russiagate. You believed that there was a good reason for big social, all these corporations, to censor the Hunter Biden laptop story. I mean, you guys are late to so much. And so when it's sometimes frustrating for us to talk with you because you come in full of arrogance and hubris and you throw a lot of insults a lot of the time and you engage in a lot of projection. You call people who are not in your cult, you call anybody who's not in your cult. It doesn't matter if we're liberal, if we're libertarian, if we're conservative, if we're an anarcho-capitalist. It doesn't matter any of the political leanings. You just lump us all together and call us MAGA cult. And you say we're in a cult, you don't really know anything about us or what we think about things, like, but you do engage in projection, and I don't think you know you're engaging in projection. This is what your leaders, the people in your cult, have told you to do. They have told you that we are all the things that they are. And so you just repeat that stuff. But I really hope you are here. I really hope you are watching, because there's a lot of concerning things about this. I want you to, if you're on the left, I want to ask you this. I want you to think about this. The president just dropped out of the race, even though he was the nominee, via a tweet. A tweet. We don't even know who wrote the tweet. We don't know. I mean, is he cognitively able to write the tweet? Did he write? They haven't told us who did this. We haven't heard confirmation from him. Is this the way things are supposed to be done? What if his account was hacked? I mean, we're just operating on the assumption that this is all true. I'm not saying it's not true, but it's like, isn't this weird to you? Shouldn't he have done a press conference? Why didn't he do a press conference? Isn't that weird to you? Are you just starting to notice how little he's appeared in front of the public in the past few years? Is that sinking in now? That they don't put him in front of the public. They don't put him in front of the cameras very often. They did purposefully with the debate. He didn't do a press conference to tell us, like, hey, I'm not going to run. But don't worry, I'm here. It's safe for me to continue being the president. Isn't that crazy to you? He's so far gone that he can't be the nominee, but he's not far gone enough that we should be concerned that he's in that office. He shouldn't step down immediately. He's not incapacitated enough that he needs to step down immediately. Really? But he couldn't do a press conference and tell us this? Wow. I'm just asking you, if you're on the left, is this not freaking weird to you? Is weird. Look at this. And also the fact that up until somebody issued the statement on Twitter from his Twitter account, his whole team, the ones closest to him, this is why I think there was a coup. Jill Biden, his wife, the others, they really wanted him to stay in. The ones close to him were shocked that this happened. Look at them. Up until the moment that tweet came out, they were all saying, they were on the media and everything. They were saying, no, he's staying in. He's fine. He's staying in. Meanwhile, those of us, again, you guys are in your little echo chamber. You only hear what they tell you. But if you get outside of it, let's say you don't even trust conservatives or anything. Who cares? Get outside and see what they're saying, because we see things you don't see. We see lots of stuff you don't see. I know this because I used to be in your echo chamber. And when I started getting out of it, I was like, wait, what? There's so much more information out here. You can choose whether to trust it or not, but there's so much more information. So we were seeing all these reports of internal fighting and and they were saying he's going to announce after the weekend. Somebody from his team's going to announce that he's dropping out. We already knew that was going to happen before you guys did. We knew. But his team was going on the media and saying, nope, no truth to it. Look at this from Politico. Joe Biden's announcement stunned White House and campaign aides, who up until this afternoon were insisting that he would stay in the race. This is from yesterday. Many of them, including some senior aides, first found out that was no longer the case by reading the letter that Biden posted to X. Do you guys think Biden? Here's your first test. Do you think Biden posted that letter to X? Do you think he posts anything to X? Come on. First found out that was no longer the case by reading the letter that Biden posted to X. That's how he announced it? Twitter? Didn't do a press conference. Quote, "We're all finding out by tweet," said one Democrat familiar with the immediate reaction. None of us understand what's happening. I just have to laugh because it's like, we are in the craziest timeline. We are in a dystopian novel. Do you understand? That's what we're living in right now. We're living in it. is crazy. None of us understand what's happening, they say. In a sign of the abruptness of Biden's decision, the campaign blasted out a fundraising email for Joe and Kamala at 1:54 p.m., 8 minutes after Biden announced he was stepping aside. Biden in air quotes, announced he was stepping aside on Twitter. And then 8 minutes later, the campaign sent out a fundraising email for Joe. Like, he's as if he was still in the race. Just so disconnected. It was an internal coup. There were jokes going around. One of the funniest jokes I saw on Twitter was like, just imagine how Biden's going to feel to learn he dropped out when he wakes up from his nap, and that's really wickedly funny because potentially there could be a tinge of truth to it. Do you understand? Like, it's like, I don't know. Is it possible you didn't know? Yes, it's possible. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, you guys. It's crazy times, isn't it, Kendra? Crazy times. Here's the thing too, is that if you have now, allow me to just say this for a second. Again, my friends and my mods, who some of them pirate who are not believers, allow me a moment of cheesiness. A lot of people who are in that leftist cult I used to be in, they project a lot, like I said, and so they always think like they're like if they think that like they thought when Biden won, we put that in air quotes, in 2020, they thought the right was going to riot. They thought people who voted for Trump were going to riot and burn things down, and that didn't happen. But why did they think that? Because that's what they do. That's what they do. They riot and they burn things down and they cause violence, and again, they project all of their worst parts of themselves. If you look up in psychology, it's like projection is how a person, when you have an uncomfortableness with the dark parts of yourself and you put all that dark stuff on someone else. And sometimes you do it with full knowledge. You're malicious. Let's say you're a sadistic person, or you're a psychopath, or you're a sociopath or a narcissist. They know they're doing it, I think. But a lot of times people do that. Some people do that without knowing they're doing it. They project because they can't deal with that stuff in themselves, and they put it on other people. They say those people do that. Those people are going to riot and burn things down. There's going to be violence in the streets if Trump doesn't win, and that didn't happen. And but let me tell you, we all know, those of us who are awake, whatever the results of the 2024 election, like we've talked through a lot of future scenarios that you guys never talk through because you just rely on what the cult tells you, what your echo chamber tells you, what the corporate media, what the overlords tell you. You believe it. You didn't know Biden had any cognitive problems until they let you see it and told you he had cognitive problems. Like you just are in that cult and you don't think that a lot of you, like Rosie O'Donnell, I saw her video where you're like freaking out about like, oh my gosh, if Trump wins, we're going to lose democracy. And that's the only scenario you can envision in the future because you don't know any different. Like and they implanted that in you. They gave you that. They gave you that false belief that if Trump wins, it's gonna, Chicken Little, the sky's falling. I saw some of you guys on Twitter. I saw one of you, he leftists, who were sincerely freaking out and saying, if Trump wins, I have to move to another country. Which countries do you guys recommend? I've been Googling flights. I'm so scared. And it's like, well, there was a funny joke, a sarcastic, dark humor kind of joke that was, somebody said, well, where did you move the last time he was president? And why did you come back? Like, where did you move? Because you didn't. Because nothing happened. Because democracy didn't fail. Your taxes were lowered. Gas was cheaper. The sky didn't fall. It's not going to fall if he wins again. But that's what you guys think. That's the only future vision you have. They gave you that. Your overlords gave you that. Your cult leaders gave you that. And, if Trump wins, democracy, it's going to be craziness, right? Here's what I think is really going to happen. if Trump wins, which I'm still not convinced that'll happen because I don't trust our elections at all. Do I think he's going to win by legitimate vote? Yes. But will the official results reflect that? Maybe not. In 2020, you guys had a lot of false ideas about us, and you thought people who voted for Trump were going to riot and set things on fire, and we didn't. You also thought we were going to be hysterical and crazy like you guys get. We weren't. I don't know if any of you leftists who don't like me, who follow me, a lot of you follow me, you comment on my posts on Facebook and stuff all the time. I don't know why you're so obsessed with me. You hate me, but you follow me. Anyway, if you weren't following me in 2020, you can go and look through my posts. It wasn't like, oh, the sky's falling. We just kind of deal with things as they come, and we've already imagined the scenario. So if Trump wins, I do know you guys are going to be setting things on fire. That's going to happen. There's going to be violence. We all know this. Those of us who are awake, we don't delude ourselves like you guys do. Like, we're prepared. If Trump is allowed to win, you guys are going to be setting small businesses on fire. You're going to be throwing Molotov cocktails. You're going to be out in the streets. You're going to say democracy. Oh no, we just lost democracy. Therefore, we must end democracy. I mean, that's really what you're going to be saying. You see how they get you to do this? They get you guys to fight, to be the very things you think the enemy is. They get you to try and destroy democracy by saying falsely that it's now been destroyed because this guy won. Like, that's what they get you to do. And you're so easy to puppet. They know the strings that they pull have been there forever. They know which ones to pull. And so we know if he's allowed to win, there's going to be a period of violence. And maybe some of your leftist politicians and talking heads and media figures have called. I mean, they called a few weeks before the assassination attempt on Trump. They were calling openly for Biden to kill Trump, to take him out, like to assassinate. They were calling for that. We watched those videos. Those lunatic congresswoman who was saying that, send a SEAL team in and kill the Supreme Court. She was saying crazy stuff like that. So it's not just going to be you guys out in the streets causing violence and mayhem, but there's also possibly going to be some political move to remove Trump. I don't know what that could be, but something like that could happen. I also think a lot of you are going to be emotionally and mentally, spiritually, all of it, like, unwell for a long time if he's allowed to win. I saw what happened when he won in 2016, and I wasn't out of the cult then. I was one of the people who cried. I cried a lot when he won. I was on my way out, but I was still in the cult enough to believe that he was a demagogue and he was, gonna put people in camps. I don't know if I ever believed the camp thing fully, but I believed he hated women and people of color and gay people. I believed all that crazy stuff. And but I was on my way out of the cult at that time. And I credit that for why I didn't completely break down. I was able to function, but I saw friends of mine who were not able to function. You guys started talking about on Twitter and Facebook all the time, posting crazy tear videos. Remember, Google had like a crying work session where they were counseling their employees about how we just lost democracy and your corporations were doing crazy stuff like this. They were encouraging the madness in you. They were growing the mental illness in you. And you guys were posting on Twitter and Facebook about, like, what medications are you guys on? I can't sleep at night. I'm on this med and this med and this med. It's not working. You were like really just barely hanging on. I knew friends who couldn't go to work, who called in sick for weeks. I knew friends who could not clothe and feed their children and had to rely on other friends to come help them because they couldn't get off the floor crying. It was like a psychological break. I'm not saying this to mock. I'm saying this with revulsion at what they've done to you. And I know this is going to happen if he's allowed to win. This is going to happen to a lot of you again. You're going to go like a puppet. Again, you're just gonna go through that period of psychological break, mental and emotional and spiritual, just wrecked. You're gonna be wrecked. Now, if Kamala or whoever the nominee ends up being wins, I'll put that in air quotes, wins, you're not gonna see that from us. I mean, maybe some people, but not the majority of people. Have you ever wondered why that is? There's not that we're not gonna be rioting in the streets like you guys do. We're not gonna be burning things down, but also we're gonna be generally fine. My life's gonna go on. Why? Why do you think that is? Do you ever wish that you had that your level of emotional stability or emotional instability was a little bit reduced? Do you wish you were more emotionally stable? You probably think it's just a problem with you, that you have to get on the right medications. That's not I don't think that's it. Not for the majority of you. Um, you need to get out of that cult. You need to get out of that cult. Like, you believe some crazy stuff. You believe some crazy conspiracy theories. I know you guys, you know what QAnon is. You thought we were all QAnon. Those of us who didn't vote for Biden, we're not. I'm not. I objectively stood back and looked at QAnon and said, these guys believe some crazy things. But your media told you that we were all QAnon and it was huge. And so I know you believe that. So you know that you and I agree that they believe some crazy things. And let me tell you this. You believe crazier things, probably, or at least on the same level. You believe really crazy things. And it's not good for you psychologically when you learn the truth of things and or if things don't go your way because they've gaslit you so much. You think if Trump wins, it's like the end of the world. Yes. Thank you, Tracy from Keto and Crime. Our identity is not caught up in a hive mind. We don't completely lose ourselves. Yes. And there is Jesus. Yeah. This is why I said, forgive me, non-believers, allow me a bit of cheesiness. My identity is not caught up in who wins the presidential election. My belief in how things are going to go in the future is not tied up in which person wins the presidential election. I don't believe there's any one party or politician who can save us, who can stop the progression of things like the path that we're on. I think they could slow it. I think they can turn it in different ways. Hopefully, I want Trump to win because to me, that's a sign that we might be healing a bit some of this woke Marxist communist ideology, that people are rejecting it. I want him to win because I want an immediate stop to the sterilization and mutilation of children in the US. I want the same thing that's happened in progressive countries like Sweden and Denmark and Finland and Norway and the UK. I want they've ended that practice, that barbarism against kids. I want to end it here. There are some very practical reasons why I want him to win. I wanna stem the tide of illegal immigration. The most important thing the executive branch is supposed to be doing is, like, protecting our borders. They haven't been doing that. I wanna put an end to that, or at least stem it. So, I want to bring down inflation. There are practical reasons why I want him to win. But do I think him winning is gonna cure the culture? No. Do I think it might do I think it could stop the crash that I think is gonna happen at some point? Maybe, but I think that's very slim chance. So whether Trump or Biden's replacement wins, it I still think our culture is heading for a serious crash. So to me, it's sort of like there are some people I know who think, they wanna speed that crash up, and so they're like, "Let the Democrat win. We'll hit the crash faster. Everything will burn to the ground faster, in our culture. Like, we'll get hit there, and then we'll grow from that." That I'm not on that train. I don't I'm not one of those. I do want Trump to win. But either way, that the friends who have that point of view, I think they're right. We're gonna hit that. It's inevitable at some point because I don't think one politician can turn it all around. I think he can do some good. I think he can stop some of the worst things that are happening. And I think it's a good sign if he wins that people are rejecting this woke Marxist communism, this evil ideology. So, but my identity and my sense of well-being and how things are going isn't tied up in who wins. So I'm saying all that to the left to explain to you, like, you don't have anything that keeps you content underneath. There's nothing that gives you peace underneath in troubled times or anything. Your whole identity and your sense of well-being, this cult has really done a brainwashing number on you. Your whole identity and sense of well-being is wrapped up in who wins the presidential election. That's insane. That's crazy. That's gotta feel really scary. That's gotta feel really like you don't have any control over anything and there's nothing that gives you and it's all tied into like who wins this election. And wow, what an unstable place to be in. I feel sorry for you. I do. I feel sorry for you. I want to show you a couple of videos of what I'm talking about, but first, let me just thank a few people. SD0, thanks for becoming a member here at Deprogrammed. I should have said that at the start. If you like this channel, if you like this content, if you like my goals, my goal with this channel is to help wake up more people who are in the cult I used to be in, people on the left, in the woke left. And I've seen it happen. There are people in our community who left the left like I did. I've interviewed countless people who left the left. I know lots of us now. It is possible. I'm not a black-pilled person. I'm a white-pilled person. And if you like that aim, if you like that goal, and you like the content, please consider supporting me here at Deprogrammed. Thank you, SD0, for becoming a member. Also to GJJ, who's been a member for 15 months. I love that truck in your profile pic. Thank you. Tubby Lumpy, what a funny name. Gifted 1 Deprogrammed membership. Thank you for that. Whoever scooped that up, give Tubby Lumpy a big thanks. Thanks for supporting the channel. Keto and Crime. Wow, Tracy. Wow. Thanks for supporting for $50. Very generous. Says, I don't think this is some big plot. I think they were hoping they could pull it off again, and now they're panicking. They covered up FDR's polio as long as they could, too. I agree it's scary, but I think it's a panic move. Yeah, I don't think it was some huge plot in that they were all on board with it. I think they fought over it internally. You know how things get political? Take your career, whatever your career is. Let's say you're a nurse. You know how there's like all these internal politics at the hospital and people, it's all like Game of Thrones at the hospital all the time. No matter what industry you're in. This may be more true for the women than the men. There's always like crazy internal politics. It's like, why do people have to do this? I'm saying they, in the internal politics of what they were going to do, they were probably fighting, and a certain faction of them said, let's push for the debates to be earlier. Let's get them out there, right? Let's make it so unavoidable that everyone sees what we've all been hiding, and then we can maybe get our way. I think that's what happened. Hopefully that clarifies what I think about it a little more. Thank you so much, Tracy. And you guys go and check out Keto and Crime. I haven't, so much has happened since gosh, the assassination attempt weekend. I was in New York for a wedding, and I haven't been able to share. Tracy and I did this thing about Project 2025. It's on her channel. Somebody dropped the link in the chat. Tracy, drop the link and I'll promote it. I haven't promoted it yet. We talked about 2025, Project 2025, before the assassination attempt, and now there's so many things that have happened since then. But I do want to come back to that because I think that's going to be a big thing that they're relying on. They're trying to fearmonger and scare the people in the woke cult by telling, first of all, they're lying and saying this is Trump's plan. It's not. It's an independent plan that was put together by the Heritage Foundation, a few other conservative organizations. Trump has his own plan. It's called Agenda 47. You can compare and contrast them. But they're telling them that lie, and then they're saying how terrible they think it is and how it's going to end democracy. None of the people in the cult read it. They don't read plans. They don't read any source material. I'm not trying to insult you if you're watching from that cult. I'm just saying you don't. Have you read it? You haven't. I know you haven't. Go read it. Go read it or watch the video Tracy and I did about it so you can see what's in it. But they're really fear-mongering about that, so I'll probably come back to it again. In fact, also for Halloween, I think I'm gonna go as Project 2025. I just gotta figure out how to do that costume, so if you have any ideas, I'm gonna be Project 2025 for Halloween, and, maybe I'll just rattle some chains. It's so silly. Keto and Crime says, yeah, Tracy says that Trump's plan, Agenda 47, is very moderate. Yeah, and I've already seen on Reddit all the fear mongering about both plans, and they are off the bat, they're incorrectly they've got so many of the facts wrong because they haven't read the plan. And they're doing posts where they're bullet pointing and saying, federal ban on abortion. It's like, that's not in there. It leaves it to the states. Like, there you have so much wrong. So much wrong. It's 900 pages. They did not read it. No, they didn't. Okay, John Thomas for $10. Thank you. Says 2 factions. One thought they could lump him across the line. The other wanted him gone. Both knew that he's a veggie. Hillary and Soros endorsed Kamala. New York Times Education Board wants her out too. Biden funds refunded. I think you're right. There were 2 different factions. They were at war. And the side that wanted him out got their way. That's what happened. They got their way by pushing him on the stage like that in June and showing everybody the emperor has no clothes. Like somebody said in one, I saw a comment that said, a good rule of thumb for leftists is never trust a leftist. Will stab you in the back. It is a good rule of thumb. Any kind of ideology like that, the Marxist, communist, even if it's woke Marxism, woke communism organized around identity, it functions the same way. When he was no longer useful for them, they were happy to put him out on that stage and humiliate him, sundown him. Force of Light, a member for 3 months. Thank you, Michelle. Says the mainstream media, Biden's a hero. Trump is too old. That's what they were telling us, right? They said the craziest stuff. Beard for $5. Thank you. Says, man, that hearing for Secret Service was a waste of time. 3 hours and no questions were answered. But man, they're sure it wasn't a plot, though. Oh, I'm sure. How sure are they, Beard? Are they as sure as they were when they told us that there's no way COVID came from the lab in Wuhan that studies COVID and does gain of function research? Are they that sure? Fernando Nauman, who's been a member for 2 months. I appreciate it. For the 2 months membership, gives a little heart. It looks like a pretzel heart, but I know it's hands. So thank you. It looks like a pretzel though. And John Thomas, who's been a member for 5 months, says the FEC says that the Biden campaign funds must be refunded. Oh, all those funds that they donated after he dropped out have to be refunded. That's interesting. Beard for $5. Also, I got $5 on Clinton being the VP pick, and the prez will quote go away for some reason, and MAGA will be blamed, and she'll be prez. Look, like I said, we've all thought of countless scenarios, countless ones, and I'm pretty confident the people in that woke cult I used to be in, they don't imagine different things. They just go based on what they're told, which is if Trump wins, democracy ends. And that's it. These things probably sound crazy to them, but let's go back 5 years. If you would have told them this would have happened to Biden, that the nominee, that he would be president, that he would go on that stage and give the performance he gave at the presidential debate, if you would have told them this was going to happen and that the media would then turn on him and then that he would announce that he was dropping out of the race, but not dropping out of being president because he's perfectly safe to be president, but dropping out of the race via a tweet. If you had told them all of this, they would have said, that sounds crazy. That sounds like a conspiracy theory. That's never going to happen. It happened. KB, who's been a member for 6 months. Thank you, KB, says the culture of victimhood cycle has to be broken. Yeah, I would say something about this. I've been thinking about this a lot. You guys know, I think, it's really useful to figure out woke, my old ideology, social justice, through a variety of different lenses. You could accurately describe it through a variety of different lenses. One lens is the lens of psychological disorders, the lens of mental illness. And Josh Slocum, my friend Josh over at Disaffected, covers this very well. The ways in which woke ideology um, increases cluster B personality disorders, or at least increases the traits of cluster B personality disorders. And I've talked about this several times, and I was tweeting about it recently with someone who was asking, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Is it mentally ill people who are pushing woke, or does woke make people mentally ill? And I think it's both. It's honestly both. But if you think about it, that cult, it gives validation to and it rewards a lot of cluster B traits. One of those is this culture of victimhood. It rewards people for being a cry bully, for pretending to be a victim, for faux victimhood, while abusing others and assaulting and attacking others, but claiming to be a victim, falsely claiming to be a victim. It rewards that behavior. And we've been seeing more and more of it in our society. It rewards projection. That's a cluster B trait. Accusing others of doing the thing you're doing to them. It rewards that. It rewards high emotionality. That emotional instability I was talking about that they have, it rewards that. Being histrionic, acting hysterical, it rewards that. And so I think that's a very useful lens through which to look at it. It's making people sick. Randy for $5. Thank you, Randy. Says, God and locally raised and processed beef are my medications. These are good medications. Yeah, Randy, some of the stuff my husband and I have been talking about, and for those on the left, again, who, like I said, I feel sorry for you because I think you're so emotionally unstable and you're so easily manipulated and you always learn things late, and it would be a very terrible place to live in, like living on shifting sands, right? And one of the things that I know from being friends with some of you is that you're not very prepared for possible future outcomes. I know that you think, because your media told you, that it's a very right-wing thing to become physically fit, to be able to deal with different scenarios, to go to the gym, that's a right-wing. They did all these articles about how going to the gym is right-wing, to keep you guys from going to the gym. Honestly, they're keeping you weak. And also they did all these articles about how right-wingers are becoming homesteaders and survivalists, and they're growing their own food and stuff, to keep you guys from wanting to do that. Why are they trying to keep you from getting prepared for possible scenarios? I know a lot of you guys are not. You know, you don't grow your own food, you don't keep chickens, you don't have guns. They've convinced you not to have guns to protect yourself, and if something goes wrong, if the shit hits the fan, how are you gonna protect your family? You guys don't believe in owning guns? It's weird. Like, that's a really weird place to be in, I think. But yeah, you're not protected. Imagine all the power were to go out. What are you gonna do? What if there were riots in this, especially if you live in a city? If there are riots and people burning stuff down and going door to door, like, what are you gonna do? You gonna call the government to help you? What if it's the government? I mean, I don't think you've thought through a lot of these things. I don't think you're very well prepared, and I also feel bad for you for that. I feel like they've handicapped you. I'm not trying to be condescending. I'm trying to say maybe you should start thinking about some of these things. It's okay. It doesn't make you right wing to learn how to grow food. We're getting ready after we finish the painting part. We're getting ready in our backyard to do a huge garden. We have friends who we're learning things as we go. We have friends who are much better at this. They've done this for years. We've been talking to them about what we need to do, what kinds of foods we're going to grow. Like we're really thinking about how to be self-sustaining. And what I'm trying to tell you, if you're on the left, no matter if you disagree with everything else I say, think about your family. If you have one, think about yourself. You there's nothing right wing about becoming self-sustaining. And I promise you that. It's not gonna your friends don't have to know if you know how to take care of yourself. If they might think you're a MAGA cult if you're growing corn, like, who cares? You don't have to tell them. You should take care of yourself. At the very least, stockpile some food, maybe. Just yeah. Spaceman, if things get really bad, no one's coming to save you. Yeah. Therese has some tips for you. Buy 5 cans of food a week and put it away. Last two, Thomas M for who's been a member for 13 months. Hey Thomas, says 5 years ago was 2019. It feels like 84 years. I know. So much has happened, right? At the same time, time is speeding up for me because the older you get, the faster time moves because it's a smaller fraction of your life, those 5 years. Donna Hergenreger for $4.99 says, I am not ever cared for ever Biden, but I find myself feeling I've not ever cared for Biden, but I find myself feeling sorry for him. It's elder abuse. I'm enjoying the stream. Well, thank you. That look, good. That means you have empathy for someone you don't even like. And that's when it counts. It's easy to like people and feel sorry for people who you like. It's much harder to do it for people you don't like. And I think that's really a sign of your beating heart, like your humanity, that you feel that. There were times during the debate where I felt sorry for him. It would swing rapidly. Then I would just be like, oh, this guy's terrible. And then I would feel sorry for him again. That's normal because they put him out there and did that to him. And his wife, I don't think Jill Biden was part of the contingent that wanted him to drop out. I don't think she was part of the contingent that wanted him to embarrass himself public. She's just so deluded, and I think she just pushed him out there, but she knew he was like that too. She pushed him out there for her ambition, just to keep going no matter what cost. And a loving spouse is supposed to protect you from everything, including the worst parts of yourself. And if you are, for example, if you're a rock musician and you're lost to addiction and you're on tour and you're on a national tour and you feel like, oh, I can't cancel it, my fans need me and I got to keep going, but you're just drunk and stoned all the time and the tour is making it worse. A loving spouse would try and protect you from that and try and get you to cancel the tour and get help for that addiction. Like, that's what they would protect you from. That he was cognitively impaired to the point where he was going to embarrass himself in that debate. A loving spouse, even if he was arguing and saying it's going to be fine, I got to go out there, my fans need me, she should have tried to stop him. I had some feminist on Twitter argue with me and say, why are you trying to blame the woman and the wife? The DNC pushed him out there too. I'm like, yeah, well, he's not married to the DNC. The DNC is not his wife, his spouse. His spouse should be protecting him, trying to, and I don't think she did that. So I felt sorry for him too. Okay, I want to show you a couple of things. Well, just about the mental illness. And how they are increasing the mental illness on the left. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen some of the videos of Kamala Harris's stepdaughter. There's some crazy ones. I'm not going to show all of those today, but she's she's part of this mentally ill, deranged cult. And I just saw this picture of her today, where Libs of TikTok said, when is she going to hit the campaign trail for her stepmom? There's something to be said about, I mean, if you look at Hunter Biden and all of his problems, and you look at Kamala Harris's daughter and all of her obvious problems, there's something to be said. There is truth to the idea that if you can't even get your house in order, if you're not a good leader in the home and a good role model in the home, perhaps you should not be trying to lead and be a role model in the greater world. Because like Jordan Peterson says, make your bed, clean your room. You failed. There's something wrong with your family. Our pastor's sermon yesterday was talking about when you don't have the Holy Spirit in you, or if you're blocking the rivers of human flourishing flowing from you through your sin, how everything around you becomes a desert. And he was talking about how you look at some families and everything is a desert. It's barren. There's no growth in their family. If anything, things are dying. It's just death. It's just a desert. And in some communities, they become a desert. They dry up. I think if you look at the children of some of these politicians, it tells you a lot about their capacity to be leaders, about whether or not they're fit to be a leader. Figuratively, I would say Kamala Harris's daughter is evidence of a desert around that woman. It's just my opinion. So that was one of the kind of crazy things I saw, but I want to show you this video because this is pretty typical. My friend Frank McCormick, I've interviewed him before. You guys, if you want to go back and watch the interview, he's this badass teacher, former teacher, who started noticing woke spreading in his school. And because it's illiberal and it's racist and sexist, he started pushing back against it. And he ended up losing his tenure position and everything for trying to protect the kids from this ideology. He's a great follow. You can find him at Chalkboard Heresy or CB Heresy on Twitter. He shared this and he said liberals are not well. My only correction to this would be I wouldn't call them liberals, because again, you guys know how I feel about that word. They're not liberals, and I think that's part of the solution, is to help them understand that this is not liberalism. Woke is not liberal. But I know what he means when he says it. He's talking about woke leftists. He says they're not well, and I don't trust people like this to vote. And just look at this. There's tons of videos like this the past few days, including from Rosie O'Donnell.
He's dropped out! He dropped out! Joe Biden, please! Gen Z, we need to band together. Please. He was for Gen Z's first president.
Okay. Yeah. It's a he, first of all. Is she even crying? That's a dude. I know that they're all trying to become gender neutral now, so it's confusing. Yes, this is hard to watch. And there are some people who were like, is that even real? To me, I do think this one is real. But even if this one were a parody, there are tons of these. I could pull up. We could fill a whole 2, 3, 4 hours with stuff like this. The hysteria, the truth of it is there. This is the truth of what woke liberalism, it's not really liberalism, but woke leftism does to people. Keri was speechless. Yeah, I was. It is hard to watch. It is performative. Somebody said, why would you film this? Because it's performative. Because remember the cluster B personality disorder traits that I was talking about? One of those personality disorders, histrionic personality disorder, is very performative, but they all are. So is the narcissistic personality disorder. So is borderline personality disorder. They're very performative. And this ideology rewards that performance, the virtue performance, to show how much of a victim you are, to show how emotional you are, how hurt and harmed you are, how upset you are. You really care about this, and democracy must be really on the line because you're hitting yourself and crying and screaming, and you have so much emotion about it, and you're doing it on camera so people can see it. It's like beating yourself, with the hair shirt, like, the self-flagellation that some Christians would do, this sort of, I'm whipping myself. Don't you see how much I care? Like that is performative. And social justice woke rewards that performance and that high emotionality. Emotion is king for them. And so you get all this hysterical, just crazy behavior. And it plays on your emotions because you're watching this person in obvious distress. Somebody said, I feel sorry for this person. I do too. I feel sorry for him too. This is hard to watch. Yeah, I feel sorry for him too. But at the same time, it is also darkly funny. Even if I see Michelle and there was like, I feel bad for laughing at this. Should I feel bad for laughing? No, it's both. That's a weird thing, is it's both, because you can laugh at it because this is insane and this is performative and this is deeply mentally disturbed. But you can also feel sorry for him for that reason. And I'm showing this because a lot of you on the left, I knew people like this after Trump won the first time. I didn't see anybody hitting themselves in front of me, but I saw people who were that level of disturbed and crying, and like I said, could not get up off the floor and couldn't take care of their kids. They were out of commission. They were so disturbed. And there's going to be a lot of this happening. There's going to be a lot of this happening if Trump's allowed to win. It's scary. One of the reasons I think people need to leave the woke cult, the cult I was in, I talk about this a lot. There's a lot of reasons. Number one, because it's a bad ideology. It's a racist ideology. It's a sexist ideology. It's collectivist. It's collectivism instead of individualism. It's collectivism, just like white supremacy. It's a bad belief system. It makes the world a worse place. All those things are true. That's why I think it's evil. All of these things are true. It does evil in the world. All these things are true. But one reason you need to get out of it is because it makes you sick. I'm serious about this. It makes you sick. I know a lot of you're on, like I said, I'm not saying this to be rude. Some people do benefit from medication, from SSRIs. I know that's happened. I used to be on SSRIs back in the day. What I'm saying is that a lot of people, they're overprescribed, and that you probably don't need these things if you can. Most people don't need these things. It's not normal to need these things. It should be very rare, the people who are on it. If you can get out of this belief system that's making you sick, many of you will not need these things that you're clinging to, these crutches. What meds are you on? Let me get on what dosage are you on? All that crazy stuff. I saw your post when Trump won. What sleeping meds or pills are you on? You're taking uppers to wake up. You're taking sleeping pills to go to sleep. You're drinking a lot. Like you're smoking pot all the time. You're a slave to all these substances. And it's got to feel like this. I know that feeling. It's making you sick. It made me sick. So that's a good reason to leave it. It's a good reason to at least listen to some of us who have left it. And, I'm telling you, I am trying to give you hope. There is a life, there is a future for you that might not involve all those coping measures. Jennifer Atkins, they don't have nourishment, sun, or exercise. That's true. A lot of them don't. Keri, your before and after photos are so telling. They are. I should have pulled those up. Wait, let me just show you this. Since you mentioned it. It is very shocking. to look at the physical difference in when I was woke and when I got out of woke. And so much of this is just, I mean, it's God. I know my atheist mod and my atheist friends are going to be like, stop it. It is God though. But if you don't want to believe that, you could just say it was a change of outlook on life and a change of the way in which I behaved and the change in behaviors and lifestyle and everything. So these are probably, I'm trying to remember, I think these are like maybe 12 years apart, if not longer. There were more than a decade between these pictures. On the left here, that would have been round about 2008 when Howard Dean was running. It was around that time. And then here on the right, this was like 2022 or 2022, I think. And so there's a long time in between these. And on the left, I mean, you know, I'm smiling. Also, this would have been, you would have thought this is when I was the happiest on the left, because these were moments when I got to meet my leftist heroes. So like on the left here, I met Al Franken at a moveon.org. Remember MoveOn, the big leftist org? I worked in entertainment, and some of the comedians, musicians, and people that we represented were often in the woke left as well, and they would perform at these things. And so that was backstage. I got to meet Al Franken, who I adored. I still like Al Franken quite a bit. And then below that was Michael Moore, who I loved. I don't have the same respect for him anymore that I did then, not at all. So you would think that I would look really healthy and happy. And here's me meeting Howard Dean with Margaret Cho, one of the comedians I worked with. And Howard Dean was like my hero. I wrote letters to undecided voters, like handwritten letters on cloud stationery to undecided voters in South Carolina about Howard Dean. Like I was all in for Dean. I was a Deaniac. I got a laptop bag. I had the Dean shirts. I was just, volunteering. I was so in for Dean. Also do not maintain that respect for him like I do for Al Franken. Now that I got out of the woke cult and I can see him with clearer eyes, he's become a crazy leftist. I don't know if he was always that way and I couldn't see it back then or not, but he's become really kind of very dark, like that guy from MSNBC, Keith Olbermann. He's like Keith Olbermann kind of crazy now. But I this is presumably the happiest time of my life. I'm meeting my woke cult heroes, and I just don't look healthy, right? Like I look kind of like dead in the eyes. I wore black all the time. I was an alcoholic then also. That matters a lot. Look on the right. I was a functioning alcoholic, right? Look on the right though. This is more than 12 years later. Maybe 13 or 14 years later. This is a long time later. And it's just like, this is Jesus. Like, you're going to laugh at me, but I'm serious. This is different. It's a different outlook. Okay. If you don't believe in God, just look at it this way. The benefits of a better belief system, of a better way of viewing the world and yourself. If you're a non-believer, maybe this is how you could describe it. And the benefits of quitting drinking and just being more content and peaceful in life and making better choices. So I'm telling you, if you are depressed, if you are anxious, if you're in that woke world, if you're like Rosie O'Donnell and you're just right now, you're just up and down. If you're like that guy we just watched and you're despairing one day and you're elated the next day, all related to politics, like your whole sense of well-being and your identity's built into politics, like that's your religion. That's where your faith is, and who wins an election, that's going to affect your well-being. That's just not a healthy place to be. And I'm telling you can get out of that. And you can still care about politics and who wins. And you can still, I care who wins, but my sense of well-being is not rooted in that. My identity is not rooted in that. I'm not going to lose it, go burn things down, or cry and beat myself in the face if my candidate doesn't win. I'm not going to believe crazy things like the sky's falling. So you can leave it, I'm telling you. John Thomas for $5. On a happier note, I saw Twisters and the Never Ending Story yesterday. I recommend Twister 710. Never Ending Story was great to see in the theater. Cool. I need to see some of these old movies again. Oh, this is a good time to remind you guys. Wednesday at 6:00 we are doing, is it this Wednesday? Oh no, it's next Wednesday. Never mind. You have another week to watch Sound of Hope. It's next week. It's in theaters. You can go see Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot. Support movies that you might enjoy, since there's so much woke stuff that we don't enjoy out there right now. I've heard this movie's great. It's another Angel Studios movie, and you can have a date night. You can have a date with yourself. Sneak popcorn in. My dad used to, when we were kids, he would be like, "We can't pay for the movie popcorn; it's too expensive." And then we would make popcorn and have to hide it in my kid purse. So sneak your popcorn in and go see this movie. We're going to talk about it in a week from this Wednesday. We're going to talk about that movie. Toso Tobes for €5.99. Thank you so much. Says, no press conference is weird. Yes. Thank you. But Trump Twitter's important stuff as well. They are both weird. No. Thank you for agreeing that is weird, that there was no press conference. Trump tweets weird stuff too. I completely agree. I don't know if you're on the left or what, but if you are, let me tell you, here's what we have in common. I don't think Trump is a normal person either. I think he has a high degree of narcissism at the very least. Whether or not he has full-blown NPD, I don't know. But he has a higher than average degree of narcissism. I think it tends to work for him. He makes it work for him. What I mean by that is, we live in such crazy times. I think you almost need someone like that to be able to withstand all the attacks you're going to get. He's like a bull in a china shop, and we may have needed someone like that who just doesn't care what people say about him because his ego is so big. He might be the right kind of egocentric person for this time, for this crazy time we're in. And think about it, Toso Tobes, he got shot. And he stood back up, bloody. And before he would let them whisk him away, he made sure to pump that fist and inspire the crowd. He thought about the crowd in that moment. He thought about giving inspiration to people in that moment. And I had a lot of respect for that, because whatever degree of narcissism he has, it's not so great that he only cared about protecting himself in that moment, like, get me out of here, like kind of thing. He stood up to do that. And I appreciated that. As far as him tweeting weird things, he does. And I'll tell you this, I don't know about you. You guys tell me what you think about this in the chat. But I do get the impression he does his own Twitter a lot of the time. Like, he probably has assistants and stuff who also have the password and can post official kind of sounding stuff. But all those crazy tweets he's done, and the tweets where he makes fun of people and stuff, and he acts like a regular Joe, that I think he's doing those tweets himself. In fact, that's why some of them are probably inadvisable. They don't come off as very professional, because he's just like saying, like, he's calling people nicknames and stuff on Twitter. In terms of, though, doing a press conference about something of seriousness, let me ask you this. Do you think Trump, if you were dropping out of the race, would just do so via a tweet? If after getting shot at, he had said, I'm dropping out, do you think he would have just tweeted it? I don't think so. I don't think that has anything to do with right or left. I can't think of any president who would have just put out that and not done a press conference. Obama would have done a press conference. Like, the reason Biden's not doing one is, my point in that is that he has been gone for a long time, and they have kept that from us and kept him from the public and kept him from the cameras as much as they could. And he's not in control. Some people were asking, why would they allow him to keep running things as president if he's not healthy enough, mentally healthy enough to run for president again? Why would they let him stay in office until the change of power in January? Why would they do that? Why would they put us all at risk if he's not healthy enough to run again? Why would they let him stay in control of things with the nuclear codes and everything? Because he's not in control. And they know that. And he hasn't been for a long time. He hasn't been running things. He has not been running things. And I think they count on the people on the left, the world I was in, that just get the news from the corporate media, and they just get a very filtered version of events. And they count on those people either not understanding that he hasn't been in power for a long time. He's not been the one pulling the strings. Either they count on them not understanding that, or not caring. Like, they don't care as long as their party's in office. Like, oh, but our party's in office. We don't really care who's operating behind the scenes. We don't need to know. But it's not a good way to run a country. There's no one to hold accountable, by the way, if terrible decisions are made. Let's say we were attacked by another country during this time. Between now and January 2025 and the change of power. Let's say that we were attacked by another country, and Biden, in air quotes, decided to respond in a certain way, and that way was wrong. And let's say that way was a way that we all, as the American people, said, this was terrible. How could you have done this? How do we hold him accountable? Because he's not really pulling the strings. He's not really making that decision. Like, it's not a good place to be in as a country where we can't hold these people accountable or even know who they are. That's my point about him tweeting that he's dropping out of the race instead of publicly telling us, because he's not able to do so. They're not going to let him go on camera in a press conference and make that announcement until he's hopped up on some kind of meds that make him more coherent and he's in a good... Remember after the debate when they said, well, he's really not good after 4 p.m. That's concerning. What if we get attacked after 4 p.m.? What if something terrible happens to our country after 4 p.m.? My point is, they're not going to let him go in front of the cameras to make that announcement until he's having a good day or a good hour. Oh, that was Dion. Of course, Dion, I love your heart, who said she felt bad for that person, that kid who was, that young guy, that young man who was screaming. I did too. I felt bad for him. Okay, I want to show you guys something else. This is Kamala Harris. Now, a lot of people were making fun of this, but I thought James Lindsay had some great comments on it. Kamala Harris. Now, if you're in the leftist world, again, you probably weren't aware that she says this phrase all the time, because you would not have seen the videos that we all share kind of making fun of her for doing this. But she always says this phrase, imagine what could be unburdened by what has been. And she does this weird hand symbol when she's, what could be unburdened by what has been. And she's said it thousands of times. And people started, the phrase. And you guys aren't aware of the phrase. I know, because I shared something about it. I shared a joke about it that somebody else had, this pastor had tweeted saying, I just hope JD Vance can imagine what could be unburdened by what has been. And I know some people on the left was like, what does that mean? Because you haven't seen the compilation videos pointing this out. Nobody's brought it to your attention. You're not going to get that in your echo chamber. I know that. Let me just show you this, because I'm sure some of you haven't seen it. And at first, it seems kind of innocuous. At first, when I first saw her doing this, I thought, okay, this is a phrase that somebody wrote for her, or she wrote for herself, but one of her speechwriters put this in and she loved it. And she was like, let me say that all the time because it makes me sound smart. That's what I thought was happening. And I just thought it was kind of funny that people noticed it. And she kind of got called out for just saying that phrase all the time. Like, this is my catchphrase. But James Lindsay says he has some very good points about the meaning behind it, about what it could mean to her. And so we're going to look through some of that. But first, let's just show there's so many of these compilations. Here's one of her saying it.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been?
What can be unburdened by what has been?
What can be unburdened by what has been?
What can be
Unburdened by what has been.
what we can see, what we believe can be, unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been? What can be unburdened by what has been?
What can be unburdened by what has been.
Who we can be unburdened by who we have been.
What can be unburdened by what has been. Where we can be, unburdened by where we have been, and unburdened by where we are right now. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What could be unburdened by what had been.
What can be unburdened by what has been?
What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been?
What can be unburdened by what has been.
Unburdened by what has been, believing in what can be. What can be unburdened by what has been?
What can be unburdened by what has been.
What
I
can
love
be
the gospel
unburdened
music.
by what has been?
What can be unburdened by what has been. 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 What could be unburdened by what had been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can
It's
be.
working on me. What can be?
Should be
What should be?
unburdened
Unburdened
by what has
been.
been. What can be
What can be?
unburdened by
Unburdened
what has
by what
been.
has
What
been.
can be
What can be?
unburdened by what has been. See what can be unburdened by what has
Unburdened
been.
by what has been.
Be unburdened by what has been.
What can
Can
be
be unburdened by what has been.
unburdened by what has been, and knowing what can be. Have a
can
sense
be.
of vision about what can be unburdened by
Unburdened
what
by what
has
has
been.
been.
See what
What
can be unburdened by what has been. What can be
It's working on me.
unburdened by what has
Unburdened
been.
by what has
can
been.
be unburdened by
Yes,
what has been.
It makes
What
so much
could
sense. Could be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened
Unburdened
by what has been.
What can be
Can be
unburdened
by what has been.
Where we can
Can
be
be.
unburdened by where we've been. What was possible.
Okay, we're gonna stop. There's still like a whole nother minute of this, and that's not even all of it. I'm telling you guys on the left, you can go to YouTube and do what can be unburdened by what has been, and look up compilations. And once you scroll through a few pages of authoritative sources from CNN, you can get to the real fun videos that you're actually looking for, where people have put together compilations of hundreds of times of her saying this. It's insane. It's insane. I'm stopping it there with a minute to go because so many of you are saying, please stop. Please stop. Thank you. It's painful. It's crazy though, right? Isn't this weird? It's so weird. It's not just taking something that people talk about a lot and taking that and doing it. Like I talk about woke a lot. You know, you could take different things I've said about it to describe it, and you could cut it all together and say, look, that's all Keri talks about. That's true. It's a lot of what I talk about. But I don't have like repeated catchphrases where it's the same exact sentence over and over, like a repeated catchphrase. Maybe we should have a repeated catchphrase for Deprogrammed. Like, what can be unburdened by what has been? It's weird. I'm going to show you a funny meme that Brahma Bull just sent me, and then we're going to go back to this because I want to show you what James Lindsay's saying about it. But here's the meme. It's Biden in a wheelchair saying, let's finish the job, and she's pushing him towards the edge of a cliff, and it says, what can be unburdened by what has been? And she's dumping him over the edge of the cliff. This is dark humor, and I love it. Thank you, Brahma Bull. Thank you very much. It's terrible. It's terrible. I saw another bit of dark humor this morning. Benjamin Boyce shared it. It was so dark. It was so oof. But I like dark humor. I like puns too. But I like dark humor has a sort of a catharsis to it that silly puns don't have. And it was a picture of Biden looking pretty sad. And it said Biden almost reached full term, so the Democrats had to abort him. Oh, dark humor. That one burns, right? Oh, man. Brahmable says, you do have a catchphrase. I was in a cult, y'all. I should make it that exact phrase if I don't say it like that. But man, how to leave the cult, y'all. Okay. Let's look at what James Lindsay's saying about this, because this is really interesting stuff. And he's talking about the symbolism behind this phrase. What does she mean when she's saying this? What could be unburdened by what has been? What does that mean? Instead of just laughing at it like we're doing, let's look at it for a second. So he says, let's talk about Kamala Harris. And if you're not following James Lindsay, you should be. Conceptual James on X. I think he's one of the smartest people on X and helps to see through a lot of craziness. I think he's very clear-eyed. And I have a couple of discussions with him here on Deprogrammed. One of the best ones is him and my pastor and I talking about woke and viewing woke through the lens of a spiritual war. Is it a spiritual war as well as a cultural war? And that was a really interesting conversation. Anyway, so James says, let's talk about Kamala Harris saying, to see what can be unburdened by what has been. This phrase, which she repeats all the time, is not mysterious. It's esoteric. That is, it is a cult. It's a Marxist and Luciferian incantation, and that is easily seen. So she does say it so often that does it appear to be that it could be an incantation of some kind? I like that way of thinking about it. Here. He says, what esoteric means here is that it has a hidden meaning. It looks and sounds like goofy nonsense, but it's not. People who know. That is, it's coded and Gnostic in its formulation. And the principle she's articulating is ultimately Luciferian hermetic, a la Marx. We can set aside the hand gesture that she typically makes while uttering this incantation, although we shouldn't. It's blatantly up on the right, what can be a worldly utopia, and down on the left, unburdened by or liberated, emancipated from the mundane status quo. She does this little hand symbol, which you can see there, which is, I mean, you might recognize it. I'm not going to say anything else about that right now. Let's move on. Let's have a look at Karl Marx issuing the same idea. This is where it gets really interesting. Here he is at the punchline of the Communist Manifesto explaining that when the proletariat organizes itself and executes a revolution, it can move forward into what can be communism, unburdened by class antagonisms. So he's got this excerpt here. And it says, when in the course of development, class distinctions have disappeared and all production has been concentrated in the hands of a vast association of the whole nation, the public power will lose its political character. Political power, properly so called, is merely the organized power of one class for oppressing another. If the proletariat during its contest with the bourgeois is compelled by the force of circumstances to organize itself as a class, if by means of revolution, it makes itself the ruling class, and as such it sweeps away by force the old conditions of production, then it will, along with these conditions, have swept away the conditions for the existence of class antagonisms and of classes generally, and it will thereby have abolished its own supremacy as a class. In place of the old bourgeois society with its classes and class antagonisms, we shall have an association in which the free development of each is the condition for the free development of all. His point here is that the idea behind what she's saying, what can be unburdened by what has been, it could mean many things. I'm willing to give some of you on the left, you're going to say, oh, it's an innocent interpretation. She's talking about imagining possibilities free from the things that we know and have always done, free from tradition. She's imagining human potential free from unburdened by what we know. It could be that, but it could also be what are some of the potentials and the things the Democratic Party has been pushing us towards. They say that we are burdened by sexism and racism and homophobia and by a white supremacist culture, and all of our traditions are wrong. They say, if you read the literature, queer theory and feminist theory, that they all accept and push, and it's where they pulled their pop psychology version of these ideas. They pull it from the theory. The theory says we have to destroy all cultural norms. We have to destroy what has been. The theory says that what has been is oppressive. The theory says, hey, what Marxism got wrong was that they made it about class and money, and it's really about power. It's really about power and privilege and identity, and we need to redistribute power to unburden ourselves from what has been, which to them means we have to be racist and sexist, but towards the oppressive classes, towards those who have power. We have to do that in order to balance things, and then we'll get to this utopia of what can be. He's not wrong. It's very Marxist, I think, what she's talking about. It's communist. James Lindsay continues, here's how Marx opens the Communist Manifesto, though. Quote, the history of all hitherto existing society, what has been, is the history of class struggles. That's precisely what he says a communist revolution would emancipate or unburden man from. Yes, that communism would unburden us from class struggles. Well, woke says that communism or woke ideology would unburden us from past racism and sexism and power struggles. It would unburden us from all power struggles. James Lindsay continues, in other words, Marxism itself in its own manifest declaration identifies it as being able to move into, quote, what can be unburdened by what has been. And socialist Marxist consciousness is a Gnostic awakening to, quote, see what can be unburdened by what has been. It's straight communism. A few years earlier in his economic and philosophic manuscripts, Marx expresses the same idea, comparing crude communism to true transcendent communism. It's becoming unburdened by private property as a, quote, human self-estrangement through positive transcendence. It's no accident. If you look at some of the moves of the Democrats in the past few years, you will notice they continually attack private property. The whole notion of private property, of being able to own private property. They wanted to, in the infrastructure bill, they were going to add a tax, not just taxed on when you buy your vehicle, your private vehicle, and not just taxed at the gas pump, taxed on gas. They wanted to add a tax for every mile that we drive to punish us for driving a private vehicle, for having a private vehicle. They want us to use public transportation. They want us dependent on the government to get around. This is why, if you see in the 2030 stuff from the World Economic Forum, all of their the year 2030 propaganda, the global reset, all of this stuff, they talk about how in the year, this is their tagline. They have a tagline too. It says, in the year 2030, you will own nothing and you will be happy. And it's smiling ads. It's communism. They don't want us owning private property. This is not a bug. This is a feature. If you're on the left, why? I'm going to ask you, why was that in the infrastructure bill to tax us per mile if we use a private vehicle? Why are they telling us what kind of private property we can own? Why are they remember when they pushed, let me ask you on the left, were you aware of this? Were you noticing? Were you just laughing at us like they told you to if we called attention to it when they said we shouldn't be allowed to own gas stoves? Remember when they said we shouldn't be allowed to own gas stoves? This was sometime in the past year or two. Why do they want you so dependent on them? They want you on public transportation. They want you renting. What about, let me ask you this on the left, what about during the COVID policy years when they thought it was a good idea and they found a way to get you guys on board, even though supposedly on the left, we were always anti-big pharma, anti-big corporation, anti-government. They tricked you guys. I mean, they conned you. They found a way to get you on board. How? Just by telling you the right was for these things. Oh, if the right's for it, I can't be for it, or if the right's against it, I can't be against it. Oh, man, what an easy way to puppet you. But they did that during the COVID years. They shut down the government, an authoritarian style government, shut down mom and pop businesses. They shut down people's ability to travel and to work. But they kept open all the big corporations. Why do you think they did that? Left? People on the left, I'm asking you. We saw the biggest transfer of wealth from the working class, from the proletariat, from small business owners to the wealthy corporate elite. I'm sure you know people in your community who lost their small businesses. I do. At the very least, you saw things turn over quickly, right? Because people couldn't keep their businesses open. I interviewed a grandma who went to jail because she tried to keep her coffee shop open. They got you guys on board with that, supporting that. They kept all the big chains open. They don't want you owning property. They don't want you owning small businesses. They don't want us owning any of that. They don't want us. You know what was happening? People were losing their homes and stuff, and they were losing their businesses. And you know who's buying it all up? BlackRock. And people were all excited. I'm getting 2 and 3 times what my house is worth from BlackRock. Scary. Bill Gates, he's buying up all the farmland while he's pushing all these COVID policies. Why is that happening? I'm just asking you to ask yourself some questions, to look at it. I'm not saying I have the answers. I don't know, but I know they don't want us having property. Why? Think about the CDC during the COVID years. Biden got the CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control, to put out this mandate saying that small time mom and pop, like landlords, that they couldn't evict people if they weren't paying rent. What does the CDC, this is a 3-letter organization, government organization that's supposed to be about disease and health. They're talking about private property rights. He used them to say, we're not going to allow you to evict people if they haven't paid you rent. That's crazy. They interfered with your private property rights. So all these people who were owning, like these small-time landlords, I know quite a few. I know some in the chat who own a few houses or maybe one house, and that's how they make their money. Maybe they're retirees. They got a couple of fixer-uppers and they make their money, and they were losing money. And the government forced them to lose money. A lot of them lost their houses. They lost their private property during that time because the government said they couldn't evict people who couldn't pay rent. That's insane. They don't want us driving private cars. They don't want us owning private property. They don't want us owning our own homes. They want us forever slaves to the government, asking them for, what pittance are you going to give us this week? Private property is freedom. Private property is individual liberty. That's why they don't want you having it. They don't want me having it. This is not a bug. This is a feature. I'm going to go back to this slide. This is a feature with Marxism and communism. And yes, even the woke variety. If you ever ask yourself why, when the woke people are listing all the things they believe and whenever they're doing public attacks on people, and they throw capitalism in there too, and you're like, why is capitalism in there? Because they are anti-capitalism. They're anti-private property. They are Marxists. They are communists. So this is where he's talking about Marx, and he says, communism, Marx said this, communism as the positive transcendence of private property. Oh, we're transcending the oppression of private property. The positive transcendence of private property as human self-estrangement and therefore as the real appropriation of the human essence by and for man. Communism, therefore, as the complete return of man to himself as a social, i.e., human being, a return accomplished consciously and embracing the entire wealth of previous development. This communism, as fully developed naturalism, equals humanism, and as fully developed humanism equals naturalism. It is the genuine resolution of the conflict between man and nature, and between man and man, the true resolution of the strife between existence and essence, between objectification and self-confirmation, between freedom and necessity, between the individual and the species. Communism is the riddle of history solved, and it knows itself to be this solution. Marxism was like a religion, okay? Do you not hear the religion in this? It's not merely talking about economic policy here. Like, oh, I think you should get rid of private property and you should seize everybody's wealth and give it to the state and divide it up. And like, it's not just that. He's talking about liberating humanity from itself and like the transcending it. This is religious in nature. It's real cult like. It's creepy, right? James continues, the general theory or theology, he does refer to Marxism as a theology. It is a theology. The theology of Marxism is that man is burdened by what has been, which is called his historical conditions, but he can awaken to his true socio-spiritual self, which is socialist, so that it can be transcended to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And there's a lot. This is a very long thread. I think you should read the whole thing. I'm not going to cover the whole thing in this video, but I'm going to give you the link and I'll edit the description to put it in there too. It's really interesting stuff. It's an interesting perspective on why she's saying that and what's the possible symbolism in it, in this hand gesture and talking about what could be unburdened by what has been. It's woke Marxism. John Thomas for $5. Thank you, John says, that's why she can't keep a speechwriter. People will think I wrote that gibberish. Yeah. Like, I met one of Obama's speechwriters once, had dinner with him when I was working with comedian Margaret Cho, and we were in she got invited to the White House for this thing. So I got to go to the White House there. Obama had this, it was an Asian American thing. You know, they love the identity group stuff, right? And so we had dinner with one of his speechwriters, and he was telling us how just what it's like being a speechwriter, and whether you like, this isn't a left-right thing. It was just an interesting job that they hire these people to write everything for them. And he was saying how some of the presidents have more say on what they want to say and others don't. They don't want to write anything. And he was also, this was funny because this was a Democrat and a speechwriter for Obama. But I remember he told us that he said they were really studying George W. Bush's speeches, that even though the left had characterized him as being really stupid, that he had some of the best speechwriters, and they wanted to emulate some of the speechwriters for W. And I was like, that's interesting. And this is back when I was still in the woke cult, so I hadn't really understood yet that there's really not a lot of differences sometimes between the parties, sometimes on some things. I thought that was interesting. Brandy Wallen for $5 says, James Lindsay will be in Dallas August 9th through 10th. The Evolution of Communism workshop he's calling an in-depth training event. That's awesome. August 9th through 10th, you guys. And John Thomas for $5 says, you give Kamala too much credit. She's trying to sound smart, paraphrasing something she heard, such as Marx. She's an imbecile. I tend to agree with you. I do think he's correct about the meaning behind the phrase, but I don't think she's that intelligent. I do think, I tend to think like you, John Thomas, she's more of just like, this sounds smart. I like this. Whoever wrote it for her, she's like, let's put this one in all the speeches. Let's make this my thing. You know, it's so silly. You guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up here with the what can be unburdened by what has been. there've been so many, like I said, just funny memes the past few days, and just a lot of dark humor, a lot of puns, and I'm really enjoying that aspect of this craziness that we're in. The last thing I'll say is, again, if you're on the left and you're watching, you are welcome here. Many people started watching Deprogrammed hating it. Some people came to troll me. Some people came to just hate watch. And, the way that on the left, a lot of times you get addicted to certain emotions, even if they're negative emotions, you're like, I hate this person, I'm going to watch everything they do. It's weird, but you do it. I know you do it. Or you hate me, but you comment on every post I do. Some people are addicted to that. And that's okay. If that's your introduction to me, you are welcome here, as long as you are somewhat civil in the chat. And I hope you keep watching, because I really do want you, if you are a person of good intent, and you're not all, I know some of you are dark little souls. I don't care about you guys, the dark ones. But the ones who have good intent, I do care about you, and I want you to leave that cult. And I want you to understand that it's not liberalism. And if you have questions for me that can help me better explain it to you, ask them. Ask them. If there's something you don't understand or you really want to challenge me on, ask me in the chat or ask in the comments. Don't be afraid, because I want to get better at explaining this. I want to get better at waking up more people, or helping more people to wake up anyway, being some kind of seed maybe that's planted for them with other seeds that grows one day. I want to get better at the very least having you guys understand what it is I'm saying, so that you're not walking away with a misunderstanding and just writing me off the way you like to do on Facebook and stuff, where you're like, oh, you're just a mega cult or whatever. So come back, come visit us again. Somebody said, I've never read a negative comment under Keri's videos. Well, Darkwater, the Groypers, the white nationalists, have left many negative comments. I left a few of them, but I deleted the most of them because I don't want to give them the satisfaction. And there's a particular dark personality who was sending them to my videos. And I think those people are disgusting. And I think that I don't know. I think it's funny that they think inundating somebody with hateful, anti-Semitic and racist comments is like gonna do something. I don't know what they think it's gonna. I'm gonna come over to your way of thinking. I'm gonna be a white nationalist now. You got me. You were a jerk and a white nationalist in my comments, and I'm coming over. Like, no, stupid, stupid. Michael Collier, thank you for the super chat for $4.99. Says, another great show. Thank you very much. You guys have a great rest of your day. Have a great week, and no matter how crazy and chaotic things get, like, enjoy the humor of it. And if you have questions about how to leave woke or to reach a peaceful place, or I don't care what the kind of question it is, feel free to ask below. If you like this video or you think you could share it with people on the left, please do. And thank you guys for your support. And I'll see you guys later. On Wednesday, we are doing popped culture. That's what we're doing at 8 o'clock. It'll be me and Mystery Chris. I'll see you guys then. Take care.